Clouds hanging tough on a Tuesday. Some snowflakes out there too, but more this weekend. How much are we going to be shoveling when we're done with Sunday?
All right, Ben, also ahead, a bizarre stabbing investigation. 2 co-workers, both injured. One is found naked. We'll tell you what we've learned so far. And we're tracking the response to a tuberculosis scare. Some parents telling us they are frustrated as they try to get their children tested. All these stories and more, first at 4.
Live from downtown Detroit, home of WDIV and Click on Detroit, Local 4 News First at 4 starts now.
Good afternoon, I'm Karen Drew. This is First at 4. Police say a 20-year-old is in the hospital right now after being stabbed nearly 20 times by a co-worker. This happened at a mobile home on Bristol Drive in Brownstown Township. Police say the attacker then left the home, stripped his clothes off, and then ran to a nearby hospital, claiming he was in an accident. Hospital workers didn't believe him and called police, and then officers took him into custody. The man who was stabbed is in critical condition. It's not clear what led up to the bizarre chain of events. A Warren man will stand trial for the murder of his girlfriend, allegedly during an argument about sex. Marcus McLean is charged with second-degree murder in the shooting death of Derica Blessett. The two are parents of a 7-year-old child. Police say McLean and Blessett were arguing about sex in their home last September when he shot her to death during a struggle. He's facing life in prison if convicted on that murder charge. Detroit residents will be waiting a little longer to buy recreational marijuana legally. City Council voting unanimously today to extend a temporary ban on recreational sales, and that's going to go through March 31st. Some Detroit City Council members want to make sure some of the city's underserved communities will get a chance to share in the benefits that come with legal pot sales. New at 5:30, you're going to hear some of the concerns swirling around this decision and what comes next. Coming to an end of another afternoon, kind of spent in that gray, gloomy winter rut. Let's head over to Ben and see if he can put some little sunshine into our forecast. That would be nice.
I did all I could today, Karen, and we still didn't see any. Plus, we've got a couple snow showers out there. If you squint really hard, you can see them. Just sort of hanging around the south end of Livingston County, west of Ann Arbor right now. Some of those this morning a little bit more noticeable on the drive in, but very few of those out there right now. They may continue in spots tonight going into tomorrow, but generally nothing big. Doesn't look like we're going to see any accumulation out of it. Temperatures similar to what we had tomorrow. Clouds still around, and that's really not helping things out. In fact, it's actually 28 right now in Sandusky compared to the mid-30s that we are seeing elsewhere. Here's a look at the forecast this evening. Temperatures not falling all that far, still staying above freezing by midnight tonight. Couple isolated flakes. Again, tomorrow doesn't look a whole lot different, but the weekend does. We'll talk about Saturday and Sunday in just a few minutes. Karen?
All right, we look forward to that. Thank you, Ben. Well, now we'd like to bring you up to date on President Trump's impeachment trial. His legal team wrapped its opening arguments, and that was about an hour ago. But the debate over whether to call witnesses is really overshadowing the arguments on the Senate floor. Local 4's Jason Colthorpe is here with some of that debate and what happens next. Jason.
Yeah, Karen, you really talk about dropping a bombshell into these proceedings as they were ongoing. The president's team used about 14 hours of the 24 it could have over 3 days. And they're in a tough situation here. They've been so far unwilling to allow testimony, including that of former National Security Advisor John Bolton, who alleges in his new book to have had a direct conversation with the president on Ukraine. Now, today, the president's team argued that impeachment, quote, is not a game of leaks and unsourced manuscripts, a reference to the upcoming Bolton book, where he reportedly says the president told him to withhold military aid from Ukraine until an investigation was announced into the Bidens. President Trump denies ever even talking to Bolton. The debate over whether Bolton will be called is reportedly heating up behind the scenes, I should say. NBC reporting senators are gathering this afternoon and discussing what's next. Some of them even want to get their hands on this manuscript. The president's team says no matter what Bolton says, though, it doesn't matter.
Nothing in the Bolton revelations, even if true, would rise to the level of abuse of power or an impeachable offense. That is clear from history. That is clear from the language of the Constitution. You cannot turn conduct that is not impeachable into impeachable conduct simply by using words like quid pro quo and personal benefit.
The president's team wrapped up saying the articles of impeachment against Mr. Trump just simply do not reach constitutional standards for removing him from office. Starting tomorrow, there will be 2 days of questions for both sides, running 8 hours each day. Only after that will there be a decision on whether to call Bolton or any other witnesses or allow any more documents to be addressed and included in this trial. Of course, there will be much more to come. Karen, back to you.
All right, we appreciate it, Jason. We'll see you at 5. President Trump attempted to shift public attention to the Middle East today by announcing his long-awaited peace plan. The president unveiled the plan with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu by his side at the White House. He says he'll succeed where other presidential administrations have failed. President Trump calls it the most detailed plan ever, adding up to 80 pages. The plan still calls for a two-state solution, offering to double the amount of territory currently under Palestinian control. But the plan allows Israel to hold on to settlement blocks in the West Bank, long opposed by the Palestinians. It would keep Jerusalem as the undivided capital of Israel, also controversial. The proposal offers Palestinian leaders 4 years to work out the details, with President Trump sending them a message.
President Abbas, I want you to know that if you choose the path to peace, America and many other countries, we will be there. We will be there to help you in so many different ways, and we will be there every step of the way.
Now, in spite of that sentiment, this plan may be dead on arrival unless the Palestinians can be convinced to sign on. Thousands protested against the U.S. and Israel today, even before the plan was unveiled. Hours later, Palestine's president remains unconvinced, saying, quote, 1,000 no's to the proposal. President Abbas is calling for a broad meeting of Palestinian factions to discuss their next step. Also raising doubts about the deal, both President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu are under pressure at home. Of course, the impeachment trial continues here, and in Israel, the Prime Minister just withdrew a bid for immunity from prosecution on corruption charges. The parliament was supposed to consider the request today, but Netanyahu says he didn't want to play, quote, a dirty game. He denies any wrongdoing, but still faces a trial which could take years, and he's facing an election in March. While the coronavirus outbreak continues to expand over in China, federal health officials here say Americans should not be worried. China has now confirmed more than 100 deaths linked to the coronavirus. It has also confirmed more than 4,500 cases. Nearly 1,000 of those patients are in critical condition today. Now, here in the U.S., the number of confirmed cases remains at 5. So while there has been a run on surgical masks in China, at this time there is no need for that here.
It is unnecessary. As we said, in the United States, the risk to any individual American is extremely low. We are taking the steps to be prepared for this. We are taking aggressive action, but the individual American, this should not be an impact on their day-to-day life. And so that would be an unnecessary step.
For many foreigners in Wuhan, China, it's time to get out. Government chartered jetliners arrived today in Tokyo and New Delhi as Japan and India evacuated their diplomats. The United States is working to evacuate the staff of the U.S. consulate in Wuhan, the epicenter of the coronavirus outbreak. Testing for tuberculosis has started for hundreds of patients of Lakeview Pediatrics Group. That practice has been heavily criticized by parents who say they have not gotten solid information about the 9-month window their children may have been exposed by an infected staffer. And as Paula Tutman reports, that anxiety continues to grow.
I know. Crystal has a car full of crying, anxious children on their way to the Ascension Medical Facility on Romeo Plank Road for blood draws. She says her own sense of anxiety comes from what she believes is a lack of responsiveness on the part of Lakeview Pediatrics when it came to first getting information out about the staffer confirmed to have tuberculosis with access to patients for 9 months, and then the subsequent lack of information Crystal says she got or didn't get in trying to get her children tested.
And I called the hotline and it was busy. I called the doctors, it was busy. I've also called to see if I could go to urgent care. You know, to get tested right away once I seen it on the news the first day, and they told me that they wouldn't test.
In the last whirlwind 6 days, numerous parents have been contacting Local 4 to complain about what they call a lack of responsiveness on the part of the practice, as well as what many say they perceive to be a lack of a sense of urgency.
They wanted Jalen to get tested, they said, and I said, well, my other two were with me, and they said it was up to you. I was panicking and all that to see if my kids or I have it.
The practice and 2 others in Rochester Hills and St. Clair Shores have been fielding these frantic calls, and the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services is aware of the backlog.
And I do know that they brought in additional staff Friday evening, once they realized that they were not handling the call volume.
But the state health agency is urging parents not to panic.
So if you and your children are not showing the signs and the symptoms, the bad cough, or that lasts more than 3 weeks, a pain in the chest, they're not coughing up blood or sputum, the chances are you do not have active TB disease.
So the testing has started, and thus far the health department says they have not found any subsequent cases. Paula Tutman, Local 4.
All right, thank you, Paula. The state health department does caution, however, that the investigation is early and is possible they will find additional cases of tuberculosis. The TB testing is free for patients who get that referral letter from Ascension Medical Group, and parents who use the Lakeview Pediatrics Group need to look for an email or snail mail notification. Breaking news this Tuesday afternoon. The St. Clair County Prosecutor's Office just announced they will not be filing criminal charges in the Warren De La Salle hazing investigation. The investigation was launched late last year after hazing allegations led the football team to forfeit a playoff game. Again, no criminal charges will be filed in the case. We're working to get the very latest and reaction. We'll have a live report for you ahead at 5. Still ahead, first at 4, it looks like diversity is good for the bottom line. Giant toy maker is redesigning one of the world's most iconic dolls once again. We'll show you. And today is the day to review the security of your personal information. 5 quick steps you should be taking. See if you're ahead of the curve when we come back.